Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Duality Bites.
Duality Bites.
This is Carmela, your hag about town, and I am here today with someone I have missed dearly, David. Hello, David.
Hi, Carmela.
So good to see you.
The missing is very much mutual.
And
It's really nice to see your face, even though they can't, but the listeners just know how delightful it is to see Carmela's face.
that makes me feel good. Thank you so much. Now, David, you and I were actually just talking a little bit off screen, and we got into this conversation about music. If you don't know, David, on top of the many other things that he's brilliant at, is also a composer. And so we were talking about the music for the show that just finished its first season. And you had some questions for me about how we did the scoring for Queen of Daggers.
Yes, I absolutely did. And then I was like, wait, we have to have this conversation. We have to document this conversation because it's absolutely fascinating. Having listened to the entire, actually, I'm still a little bit behind. I haven't quite finished season 1. I'm on episode 12. So I'm close to the end of season 1, but I've listened to a great deal of season 1. And one of the things I was the most curious about in the kind of interregnum between recording and the editing and the producing, I was so curious what the soundscape was going to be like and how these stories were going to be told musically. And I take a particular interest in that because I compose narrative choral music, which is its own kind of its own thing, and so I was asking Carmela how the underscoring developed. In my own mind, I was like, I didn't know if there was an algorithm. I didn't know where she was finding the specific sounds she was finding. It was clear that characters sort of had themes, but I was super curious. And so I even though you just told me off camera, Carmela, can you, how on the sort of most like bird's eye level, how did you approach the process of scoring or the problem of scoring? Have you ever scored anything before?
No, I've never done this before. I've never
Have you
scored
ever
anything before.
edited narrative content before?
Not narrative, no. All my podcast editing has to do with game shows. So it's, very conversational, and stuff like that. But I've never done a narrative. I've never done anything with as many tracks. And I've never scored anything before this project.
So you come to this whole sort of storytelling sensory storytelling experience pretty fresh.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So suddenly it falls, it sort of lands on you to do this. And editing is a whole other conversation, but you've got, somehow this thing has to have music. What are the questions you asked yourself?
First, how do I do it? So like I said, never done the scoring before, but I know how tracks look in editing software. So I was like, okay, so it's probably going to have to be its own track. How do I treat it? How do I adjust the volume? So I found all that stuff, all the technical stuff is pretty easy for me to figure out. Then just figuring out, where do I get music? And because I don't play instruments. I can sing, but I don't play instruments. I don't read music. I don't know any of that stuff. So I was like, well, I'm gonna have to go find music. And a few different places I found it. I actually did pay for a service for licensing, just because I was like, well, I might as well go in for it. But things like Pixabay, if anybody's out there is looking for royalty-free music, Pixabay and sound effects, that's a great place to go. And then a couple other places I went and sourced music from.
And when you hear something, when you're sourcing it, what is the sort of click that kind of draws your interest or makes you feel like it's right for Queen of Daggers? Like, how did you start to identify the soundscape of the show, and like, what is Queen of Daggers? What isn't Queen of Daggers?
So I definitely wanted to stay in kind of a kind of classical kind of mindset. So I wanted to stay in the string family because when it became apparent that I was going to have to do the music, I was like, well, I need a way to be able to sort this in my brain, or I'm just going to fall apart from decision paralysis. So I was like, I personally, the string family of instruments is my favorite. I love the string family.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, so I can split it into two. Hope can be piano because piano can get sad, but it also has that wistfully feeling whenever you hear it, and that I think that plays really well for hope because hope is is good, but sometimes hope is a longing, and you really get that sense of longing from piano music, in my
Mm.
opinion.
Mm.
So it's like, okay, so hope can be
It's a very sort
piano,
of romantic notion of the piano, the way it sort
right?
of
Yeah,
it breathes in its own way.
it does. And then so for fear, I chose the violin because the violin can pull really, really thin and can get like into where it's almost a screech. And to me, like that can really pull fear when you're listening to it. Like it gets really, really taut and tight. And then when it finally snaps, it releases. And so for me, that felt more fear like. So I stayed, that's where I started. I was like, okay, hope is piano, fear is violin. And then
Yeah.
I just kind of went from that. So then it was starting to find different themes. So um Ginny and Lemma are champions of Harrows and Rain, which are the Hope Queens. So their themes are based in piano. Orlean and Evelyn are champions of the Fear Queens. Their themes are based in violin. So that was my starting point, and everything just kind of went from there.
And so, okay, so you're listening, for, let's say, for the Hope characters, for you and
Mhm.
Lemma, you're listening for violin music. How then, okay, so first of all, how consistent do your individual character themes stay throughout? Are each of our themes consistent throughout the whole season, or they just have a similar? In my mind, they have a feel. There's an Orleans feel. There's a Lemma feel. There's a Ginny feel. Um, but not all. But are they single motifs that repeat?
They are. So the only character who has more than one theme is actually Orlean, which for Orlean makes sense in my mind,
Right. Right.
because
Right.
Orlean has
Right.
another
He's got a lot of self
entity
states.
inside him. Um, but no, it's the same theme. Now, I may use different parts of the theme. I may pull from like, especially Lemma's theme. The beginning of Lemma's theme, the track that I used, is pretty soft and slow, but then it kind of in the middle towards the end, it picks up speed. And in parts where Lemma's character needs his theme, but it's a more high energy situation, I would pull from the end of the track. Where if it was a more soft situation, I would pull from the beginning. But it is essentially one piece of music that I would just pull different pieces out of.
So something that has really struck me, the reason that I even thought maybe this is algorithmic, was
Hmm.
the way in which you choose clips of the themes to match emotional peaks and valleys and climaxes. It's really, it's really cinematic.
Hmm.
Um, and there's, there is, I am consistently, I consistently notice uh, these these moments of kind of narrative sensory serendipity. I mean, which of course are not serendipity, right? But that are just so richly layered, and the builds are exactly right, and the calling actions are exactly right. I mean, it's really good, and um and and really affecting.
Hmm.
And I'm just like 2.5 hours of this every couple of weeks, is such an astonishing amount of work to imagine doing. But I guess where I'm leading to, the question that is like what goes in for you? Like, do you figure out, okay, I know I need the music to peak at this
Mm.
exact moment in the story. And so then do you just take the 4 minutes of music before that? Are you doing internal cuts inside the clips that you use to make, like, how much are you?
Both.
Yeah.
I do both of those depending on the situation. So for the first few episodes, Asteria did help with some of the music cues. Like I think this theme should, once I, gave them all the music, this should go here and this should go here. And then eventually I took over the whole thing. But I do both of those things. There's so let's take the very first piece of music you hear in the show, which is the Asteria theme, which always plays over. Um, the reason I picked it was really because of the end, and it's got that kind of finality of tone at the end that is
This is the
really
very first thing you hear. This is
this is
that
the very
slow
first.
violin, the slow
Mm,
violin that you hear at the beginning of the
yep,
show.
that's the very first thing, and I picked it specifically because of the end.
Because at the end
Um,
of
of that track. I
oh, the
picked
track. Yeah.
of that piece of music. And because I want that to be kind of the demarcation between, okay, we're out of the intro and now we're into the story. So, and because it's
Mhm.
got a really nice finality to it.
Yeah, yeah, it's a
Um,
gorgeous piece.
and so in the beginning, the intros were a little long because, we would either be talking or there was a lot of recap that had to be done up front. And so that one piece of music is only about 2.5 minutes long. Well, sometimes the um the intro would be 5 minutes.
Right,
So
so
I
you gotta
have
loop it.
so I have to loop it, but it's not a looping piece of music. So I'd have to go in and like kind of, again, I don't know how to do this. I had to figure it out on my own to cut it in a way that or sometimes hide those awkward transitions underneath somebody talking so you can't hear it.
Mhm.
And then as soon as you can start hearing it again, you can just tell. Um, and then as the intros got shorter, sometimes they got so short because we were just ready to get into it that I would line the end up with the end of the intro and then cut everything from the beginning. So you'll actually probably hear it in the last few episodes where the beginning of that, as you come into the intro, sounds a little bit different than it would have been the first few episodes. It's just because it's later on in that track.
Yeah.
Um, so I do both of those things. I either line it up and shift it around. The program that I use is really good about letting me just grab a track and slide it back and forth. Because I have had to do that. Like I know this thing has this swell that I really want here, and then I'll go and I'll put it in, and it doesn't. It's like a half a second off. So I'll just go and I'll just drag it a half a second back or whatever, to where it hits exactly where it needs to. So I do both of those things. I cut and I set up in a particular spot.
It's I'm very moved by the way you talked about going in and having to edit the track without a loop, right? Because you got to find a way, because that really, it's like you have to get inside the musical gesture,
Yeah,
right? And at that point you're going beyond you're going beyond music editing, and you're going into you're collaborating with the composer, right?
yeah,
Like you're like, I need these phrases of music to be here, and these phrases of music are not here, and this is not a piece that's built with that has a loop built in. And so
I
what am
did
I
a
going to do,
remix.
right? Yeah, and I it's a very, in a way, intimate collaboration with the composer. It's a sort of deep musical experience, and I
Yeah,
think it's beautiful to hear about. Like I relate also because I'm, as you said before, like I'm a composer as well, but I don't have compositional training, and I don't have a lot of music theory. Um, I have music literacy, but not. Yeah, I can read it and I can write it, but I don't. Yeah, I don't know the theory underneath, and I was never trained as a composer, and so I've had to kind of sort of similarly figure out my own kind of hacks and ways into
yeah,
doing a thing for which I don't have a lot of technique, or discovering that I do have a lot of technique because I do other things that relate to it, right? And so hearing you talk, it's like, well, obviously something in you figured out how to get in there with the composer and like extend or shorten a piece of music that doesn't have a loop in a way that feels organic and sort of narratively supportive. And so there's like something in you that has some, a connection to storytelling or narrative, that is finding really great expression in this. It's just awesome.
Well, thank you. I was really nervous going into it because, like I said, I just had no experience doing it. But if there's one thing that I do have, it is the audacity, and I will figure it out.
Yes.
And I mean, I love music. I listen to music all the time, and people talk about like ASMR reactions, like they get that tingly feeling in their brain from
Hmm.
certain sensations. I only get that with music. I don't get it with
Hmm.
certain like, soft
Hmm.
voices or tapping on the microphone. I literally only get it with
Hmm.
music. And so I was like, all right, so what's going to set this off in my brain, and can I translate that to somebody else? So that's also another thing. Um and then I just kind of use touch points of different pieces of music I've heard in my life. Um, and I did explain this to you. I did say that I started with two instruments as my base.
Yeah.
Um, I have a quote unquote duality theme where it's just a piano and a violin, and that's the track. And I would use those for moments where both hope and fear are interplaying in a specific way.
Yeah.
Um, but then as we have these major NPCs in the game or in the story. You have Soren, you have Kiva. Um, a piece of music that I heard in probably first grade was Peter and the Wolf, and
Mhm.
each character in Peter and the Wolf is a different instrument. Um, and so I was like, okay, well, I can kind of translate that, and that also makes it easier for me going, okay, instead of looking for just a piece of music, I can look for a piece of cello music because I made Soren a cello. Um, he kind of lives near the fear, but it's a different feeling of fear that Soren lives in. Um, so I made him a cello. I made Kiva a guitar, and then when it came time for Porphyry, because Kiva's a guitar, and spoiler if you haven't listened to the whole show, Porphyry is Kiva's father, but they had not known each other for most of Kiva's life. So I wanted something for him that felt like it could be related to the guitar, but still a significant amount of distance away. And I picked a sitar for him instead. And so
Mhm.
I made him a sitar. So that's how I organized those kinds of things. Um, and that also helps when you're looking for things. I'm like, if I can start with an instrument, then I can go and find something there.
I I I hear you so hard, and I love it. It's what the before when we started having this conversation before we started recording. One of the last things I said to you was, "Oh, you're doing what Prokofiev did in Peter and the Wolf," and you immediately started talking about it, and we were like, "Oh, we gotta,"
Like,
um,
yeah, we should
you
actually just
know,
talk about this on camera.
but I've never scored a film. Um, I've scored some radio plays that for that I do through this teaching artist program that I help run
Mhm.
about Shakespeare and students. And during the pandemic, we had to do radio plays, and so everybody had to learn how to edit 1,000 different things. And I did some score in there, but I'm writing a musical right now, and I set poetry to music. I set theatrical classical texts to music. I compose Greek
Mhm.
choruses, things like that. Um, and and I relate um, I relate really a lot to what you're saying. There's like it's the puzzle pieces. It's
Mhm.
finding a system. It's finding patterns. It's finding rules to follow. Right? Like I find like because I don't know what to do. I'm like, I don't know how to compose something. I'm like, well, what if I'm restricted to these three notes? Or like there's this chord that's really interesting, and then this chord, and I don't know how they relate. So what if the whole thing is just these two chords? Or like, or when it's narrative stuff, it's these things, right? What if this character is, and I'm writing this musical now, and it's like there are different worlds. Half of it takes place under the ocean, and half takes place on land. And so what are the different soundscapes in these two places? And and I just going back to when you were talking about like you've got, hope and fear, that, fear is violin and hope is piano. I mean, when Asteria and I did our Duality Bites episode before, we were talking about dramaturgy, right? And like dramaturgy is sort of the structural one way to understand what dramaturgy is it's the structural elements of storytelling. So
Right.
a dance piece has dramaturgy, a theater piece has dramaturgy, right? But the dramaturgy is like what's behind the story, right? Like circular, the circularity or different kind of structural things. And what you're talking about in the way that you're constructing your music is dramaturgy. It's like, and there is an inherent dramaturgy to Daggerheart, which is this duality thing, which is hope and fear. And you immediately worked that into the structure around which you were writing. And then like giving yourself these different tasks. This character is this. And I mean, I love what is Kiva's a guitar?
Kiva's guitar.
Yeah, right. So the guitar sitar relationship, like I just those that puzzling, those riddles and ways of putting things together that make composing kind of into a game, right? Now there's that like it makes it such a delightful experience, and I feel that in your score there. It's so layered and it's and felt and imaginative, and it's like, and so hearing, like, of course it is hearing your approach to it structurally. It's gosh, what a joy.
Thank you. I
Really
really
cool.
appreciate that. Did you have any other questions about the music or?
I'm curious if you
Okay.
are so now. Well, no, I had two questions. One was I
Okay.
wanted to know when you were talking about the tingling sensation that you get when you
Yeah.
listen to music, right? And like, so do you get that from like different kinds of music, all different kinds of music? Like, what would you say is the quality in music that gives you that tingling sensation? Or is it just the tingle tells you what the tingle tells you? Is my first question. My second question is, do you then, when listening back to your Queen of Daggers, like when you're like, do you still get it while you're making it, and in the aftermath, if you hear back the episodes and that, like, do you still get to enjoy what you're building based on that tingle?
Yeah.
That question.
I get it from all different kinds of music. I thought I only got it from just specific singing, like, specific notes that got hit or whatever. But I also will get it from instrumentation because I was getting it all the time and I don't have any music that has lyrics in it in the show. So a lot of times it's because of some sort of tension that builds up and then breaks is a common one that'll give me the sensation. But sometimes it just happens. I'm just like, oh, that one was nice. And because when I edit, I listen to the same thing over and over and over again. Sometimes I get a little desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
But if I step back and then I go listen to it later, I will get the same sensation again. So, if you've ever edited anything, it is a lot of repetition of like, you're looking at the same thing or you're listening to the same thing or you're watching the same thing and you get a little desensitized, and that's fine. Fortunately, I love everyone's voice on this show and I never get tired of listening to y'all. So I'm just going to listen to the same thing over and over again. But when it comes to the music, I would have to step back after a little while and then come back. But once I do come back, yeah, I have that same sensation again.
Do you do a rough edit of the music when you do the rough edit of the dialogue, or do you complete the dialogue before you start?
I complete the dialogue first. I do all of the dialogue first. and then smash all that down and master that track, and then I put in the music. Because I mean, I would have to show you a screenshot of the very first Queen of Daggers I edited. I did it in a different program than I use now, but the tracks end up being about this big because I had so many things in there, and it just gets to be too much. So
When she says this big, it is a small amount. She's
it is a
making
bit.
a gesture of a small bar.
Look at your index fingernail. All the tracks were about that big.
Right. Right.
And my poor eyes couldn't take it. But yeah, so I do all the dialogue editing first. Now, that's not to say that if this one particular pause was like a quarter of a second shorter, would it fit the music better? I will still do that. But for the most part, all the dialogue is done before I start layering music.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I will do additional cuts if it fits the music better.
Right.
So,
That makes sense.
yeah. I just do it all by feel and sound. A lot of editing is vibes.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of it is vibes, right? I mean,
it's just all vibes.
I remember, so my theater company that I'm a part of, we made a feature film some years ago, and it was the first film for a lot of us, and I remember, I think I know who it was who said this, but one of the people that we worked with said that a film gets written 3 times. It gets written, the screenplay gets written, and then it gets rewritten when it's shot, and then it gets rewritten when it's edited. And on the surface, I understood that, but in the process, I understood something much deeper about it, which is, and you clarified it too, which is that, like, you write a screenplay, but you shoot what's happening, right? And what you shoot, the screenplay is irrelevant once the thing is shot, because now the document that you are working from it's what's shot. And if what's shot is not what's in the screenplay or tells a different story than what's in the screenplay, that's where you're starting from. Yep. And then it's rewritten in the editing, because that's where the storytelling happens. And you don't edit the screenplay, you edit what's shot. Right. And so you're rewriting the film while you're editing it. And of course, the same is true of studio music. I think there's composing it, but then there's recording it, and then there's editing the recording, and it's not what you composed, while you were sitting at your keyboard, right? And it's certainly the same with audio, with the audio form, right? Like, I mean, in our case, it's never written. I mean, it's written when we record it, right? And then it's completely rewritten when you edit it, which is vibes, of course. It's vibes. You're writing, you're composing. It's a huge thing. What are you happy to know going into season 2? What are you happy to know now that you're going into editing season 2? Thinking about relating to this.
So I'm happy that I have a good base of music to start with, because I was pulling music, I'm like, every time I went into a new episode, I was like, okay, what do I need new music for? And so I was doing that every episode, and now I have a nice little library that I can start with, so I don't have to do so much groundwork. I do want to say this. It's kind of, I also like that I have this one particular source that I can now use, that I specifically went to because I couldn't find what I wanted for Adonis, the amorous Venus flytrap, because in my head, and it's probably because I know this song so well, I wanted the opening measures to Hey Big Spender. Like, that's what I wanted. And I was like, and I couldn't find what I wanted. And then I finally found it in this one place. I was like, I will pay the licensing subscription just to get all of this stuff, just because I want this one piece of music. And then I got a bunch more stuff from them. But it's because I wanted that, and I had a specific thing in mind, and it was just because of this one song that I know And so I went with that. And so that's how we got Adonis's song, is because I wanted something from Sweet Charity that I couldn't have, so I made do with what I could find.
I've
but
been
I'm
hearing about Adonis's music now for weeks, and I'm just about to start that episode. I am so eager to hear for Adonis's entrance. I mean, I'm slightly have post-traumatic shakes thinking about Adonis.
You'll know it when you
Well,
hear it. You will
yeah,
absolutely know that cue when you hear it.
yeah. But
Um,
I cut you off while you were talking about what you were
no,
about next year.
yeah. I am getting a little bit of assistance. Jay Ben is going to be helping out with the actual editing. But as far as the music goes, I'm glad that I'm glad that I actually have more experience and that I know that I can do this now. Because, like I said, when it kind of landed in my lap, I had no idea what I was doing. And in a lot of ways, I still have no idea what I'm doing, but I know enough to get away with it. And that I still have enough curiosity about it to keep learning about it. And that actually is something that's going to help me get through season 2. Is that I still want to know more about what it is that I'm doing, and I still want to go, and I'm I'm a collector. Some might say a hoarder, but I'm a collector. So I will go out and find a thing. Like if you're looking for a thing, I will help you find a thing. But like going and finding that like perfect thing for what you need, it's the best feeling in the world. It's
Yeah.
So it's like a little treasure hunt, and I'm really excited to be able to go and get those little treasure hunts based on whatever comes out of the brilliant minds of my fellow players in this next season, to be able to find like just the perfect piece for whatever gets said. So I'm looking forward to that.
Can't wait to hear what comes out of it.
Me too. Well, thank you so much. This particular topic was not planned. It just kind of grew up organically. But it was
Go figure.
really...
You put two people in the world and they have shit to talk about.
Yeah, look at that. No, but this is great. Thank you so much for actually wanting to talk to me about this. I haven't had anyone to talk to about the music.
Every time I listen, I'm full of questions. So it's so nice that this happened. I'm so glad that I got to ask you these questions and hear your thoughts on it, and just understand and appreciate your artistry, and there's so much more.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Duality Bites, a production of Hag Deal Gaming. If you like what we're doing here, come say hi on Blue Sky or TikTok at Hag Deal Gaming. Leave us a review. We'd love to know what you think. And remember, as a wise person once said,
I'm a collector.